Senator from Indiana.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the following senators be permitted to speak prior to scheduled votes. Myself for up to 10 minutes, Senator Kaine for up to 10 minutes, Senator Risch for up to 5 minutes, Senator Menendez for up to 5 minutes, and Senator Schumer for up to 2 minutes.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'm proud to join my colleague, the great senator from Virginia, Senator Tim Kaine, on the floor of the Senate today. And as we await this final vote, final passage of the repeal, the authorizations for use of military force in 1991, the Gulf War, and in 2002, the Iraq War, I reflect on just how much work it took to get here. How much persistence, and I thank Senator Kaine for sticking it out. A lot's happened over the last couple of decades. 20 years ago, American soldiers were fighting that war in Iraq. Today, they are still there. They're advising Iraq's army at the invitation of the current government. 20 years ago, Iraq was our enemy. Today, Iraq is a strategic partner and ally in advancing stability across the Middle East. A lot has changed in the last 20 years, and yet, according to our laws, today we are still at war with Iraq. Now, this isn't just the result of an oversight. It's an intentional abdication of this body of its constitutional role in America's national security. And allowing it to continue is a strategic mistake. It's a mistake that disrespects the sacrifices of our soldiers and their Iraqi partners as well. It's one that could endanger their work across the Middle East. And it's central to our national security that we set this right. And here's why. Iran has designs on a path to the Mediterranean Sea. The world's leading exporter of terror wants to build a route to move manpower and materiel to its proxies all across the region. And once it reaches the sea, it will establish a foothold to threaten Europe. This terrorism thoroughfare would run through Syria, through Lebanon, and of course, through Iraq. Iran has sent many thousands of soldiers into Syria to prop up dictator Bashar al-Assad and co-opted regions of that war-torn nation. Lebanon's institutions are weak. Hezbollah, with Iran's backing, dominates many sectors of the government and the country. Iraq cannot follow this path. It cannot become a satellite of Iran. And Iran cannot be permitted unrestricted access across the region. Now, our advisors are fortifying and working with the Iraqi army to prevent this dangerous future. But we're undertaking this vital mission with a nation we are still technically at war with. The authorizations for both the 91 Gulf War and the 02 Operation Iraqi Freedom are both still on the books. These authorizations for long-ended wars passed almost entirely by members of Congress long retired. These authorizations are outdated. They're a detriment to our national security strategy. And they're an abdication of Congress's constitutional role in declaring and, yes, ending wars. In the centuries before our revolution, kings waged wars. Wars that their subjects fought. Reflecting on this history, our founding fathers placed the power to make war not with the executive, but with this branch, the legislative branch. And it's here, in our Congress, in the People's Congress. They determined that debate and deliberation and consensus should precede a decision to go to war or to avert it. You see, the framers placed this great responsibility in our hands. Our hands. and we've let it slip right through them. By allowing these authorizations to live on, long past their purpose, we have forfeited the power to make and to oversee wars to the White House. And presidents of both parties, have employed specious legal reasoning and used them as a justification for military interventions wholly unrelated to their original missions. So here's the choice before us. We repeal these authorizations, we restore a part of our system of checks and balances, or we let them live on, extending a permanent blank check for presidents to bypass Congress and authorizing military action. That's the choice. By doing the former, we not only take a step towards realigning the function of our government with its Constitution, we also send an important message to Prime Minister Soudani that our interests are shared, our nations are allies, that we will continue to partner with Iraq to train and equip its army in their fight against ISIS, and that we oppose Iran's violation of Iraq's sovereignty and its ambitions of regional dominance, ambitions that endanger the world far beyond the Middle East. And let us not forget that in case of urgent national security emergencies, even after repealing these authorizations, presidents can still, as they can now, invoke their Article II war powers. In closing, I just want to underscore the heroic legislative efforts, the heroic leadership that my colleague Tim Kaine has shown throughout this long effort to get this legislation on the floor, to persuade those around the country that this should remain a first-order priority, to persuade people in both parties that this merits our time and our attention, that these repeal efforts are important not just to this generation, but to future generations. Thank you to Senator Kaine and his team. I want to thank my team, my amazing national security team and legislative team for their hard work on this effort as well. I want to reiterate something I know that Senator Kaine agrees with, that repealing these war authorizations will give a greater voice to those whom we represent. We live with the possibility every day that our men and women in uniform could be called away to fight, to sacrifice their very lives for our freedom. We dread for that moment to come. But if it does, we must be certain that the American people are united behind the decisions we make here, and that our intentions are clear to our military commanders. By reclaiming our war powers, by restoring the open, civil, but passionate debates about matters of war and peace, we'll do exactly that. And our nation and its allies will be stronger and safer because of it. Thank you, Mr. President.